Maya Rodriguez was having what she generously called a Tuesday when the aliens decided to ruin her smoke break. One minute she was standing behind Burger Galaxy, contemplating whether her life choices had led her to this exact moment of scraping gum off the dumpster with a plastic spatula, and the next minute she was staring at three purple tentacled beings who looked like they'd raided a costume shop during a fever dream. "Greetings, primitive life form," announced the tallest one, who wore what appeared to be a military uniform designed by someone who'd never seen a military uniform but had heard one described by a drunk person. "I am Captain Bleck of the Harvester vessel Profit Margin. You have been selected for relocation." Maya took a long drag of her cigarette and blew the smoke directly into Captain Bleck's face, or what she assumed was his face. It was hard to tell with all the tentacles. "Relocation, huh? Let me guess, you're not from the housing authority." The second alien, shorter and somehow even more purple, consulted a device that looked like a calculator had mated with a flashlight. "Captain, the readings confirm this specimen is from the planet designated Earth 377. Classification, Deathworld. Inhabitant designation, extremely dangerous apex predator." Maya snorted. "Apex predator. Buddy, I make minimum wage at a place that can't even spell burgers right. The most dangerous thing I've done this week was eat the employee meal." Captain Bleck's tentacles wiggled in what might have been confusion. "Surely you jest, fearsome warrior. Your species conquered your entire planet through superior violence and cunning." "Yeah, well, I conquered a grease fire with a broken fire extinguisher yesterday, so I guess we're even." Maya flicked her cigarette butt at the third alien, who flinched like she'd thrown a grenade. "Look, whatever this is about, I'm not interested. I've got exactly 12 minutes left on my break, and I plan to spend them questioning my life choices, not getting probed by discount Cthulhu over here." The aliens exchanged glances, which was impressive considering none of them appeared to have eyes in any conventional sense. Captain Bleck cleared what Maya assumed was his throat, producing a sound like a garbage disposal eating a kazoo. "I'm afraid compliance is not optional, deadly Earth warrior. You will be transported to Mordak Prime, where your combat prowess will be tested against the galaxy's most formidable fighters. The entertainment value alone will fund our retirement." "Combat prowess." Maya laughed, a sound that made all three aliens take a step back. "I once got winded walking up a flight of stairs. My idea of combat is passive-aggressive text messages." But before she could elaborate on her complete lack of fighting skills, one of the aliens pointed a device at her that looked suspiciously like a ray gun from a 1950s B-movie. Maya had just enough time to think, well, this is probably going to suck before everything went purple and sparkly. When she woke up, she was in what appeared to be a space jail cell, still wearing her Burger Galaxy uniform, and wondering if this was covered under her health insurance. Probably not. Nothing ever was. The first thing Maya noticed about Mordak Prime was that it smelled like a gym sock filled with expired fish. The second thing she noticed was that her cell was apparently designed for someone with significantly more limbs than the average human possessed. "Welcome to the Crimson Arena, fresh meat," boomed a voice that sounded like it had been filtered through a blender full of gravel. Maya looked up to see what appeared to be a walking mushroom in a sequined jacket. "I am Overlord Grex, your host, your judge and quite possibly your executioner, depending on how the betting goes." "Charming," Maya said, examining her fingernails with the air of someone who'd just been offered a timeshare presentation. "Let me guess, you run some kind of gladiator thing where I'm supposed to fight for your amusement while you count money." Grex's mushroom cap wobbled with what might have been delight. "Oh, she's clever. I do love it when they understand the situation before the claws come out. Yes, little Deathworlder, you'll be fighting for the entertainment of the masses, and my profit margins, naturally." Maya's cellmate, a blue-scaled creature that looked like a nervous lizard wearing pants, whispered urgently. "Don't antagonize him. He controls the apex predators. Nobody survives the apex predators. They're undefeated champions, each one a perfect killing machine from the deadliest worlds in the galaxy." "Apex predators," Maya repeated slowly. "Let me paint a picture here. You've got a bunch of aliens who've never lost a fight, and you're planning to throw me, a human whose greatest achievement this month was remembering to water a plant, into a ring with them." "Precisely." Grex clapped what Maya assumed were hands. "The crowd loves watching prey species get torn apart. It's quite therapeutic, really. Very stress-relieving." Maya looked around at her fellow prisoners. There was the nervous lizard guy, something that looked like a walking flower with anxiety issues, and a creature that appeared to be made entirely of jello and regret. And these are the other prey species. "Indeed. Tomorrow you'll all face preliminary matches. Those who survive get to face progressively more dangerous opponents until eventually, you'll meet one of the apex predators. It's really quite well organized. Organized. Maya nodded, like a tournament bracket, but with more death. Exactly. I can see why your species conquered your homeworld. Such keen insight. Maya's lizard cellmate offered her something that looked like purple oatmeal but smelled like defeat. Here, eat this. It's all they give us, and you'll need your strength for tomorrow. Maya took a tentative bite, and immediately regretted every decision that had led to this moment. This tastes like someone tried to make food but only had sadness as an ingredient. You get used to it, whispered the flower creature. I've been here 3 months. 3 months. Maya stared at the pathetic assembly of creatures around her. And none of you have tried to escape. They all looked at her like she'd suggested they try to breathe underwater. Escape. The lizard squeaked. This is Mordak Prime. Even if we got out of the arena, where would we go? This entire planet is a criminal stronghold. Maya leaned back against the wall, still processing the situation. So let me get this straight. I've been kidnapped by discount space pirates, sold to a mushroom crime lord, and tomorrow I'm supposed to fight something called an apex predator while a crowd of aliens bets on how quickly I'll die. That's about the size of it, Grex confirmed cheerfully. Sweet dreams, little Deathworlder. Tomorrow should be quite the show. The next morning, Maya was dragged into an arena that looked like someone had crossed a Roman Colosseum with a neon-lit nightclub, and then let a committee of sadists handle the interior decorating. The crowd was already placing bets, and from what Maya could overhear, the odds were not in her favor. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted gelatinous beings. Grex's voice boomed over the speakers. Today we have a special treat. Fresh from the notorious Deathworld Earth, I present to you a genuine human warrior. The crowd cheered with the enthusiasm of people who'd paid good money to watch something die horribly. And her opponent, Grex continued. The Crimson Mantis of Zurich 7. 12 feet of pure killing instinct, armed with razor-sharp claws and acid spit that can melt through titanium. Maya watched as her opponent emerged from the opposite gate. It was exactly what Grex had advertised, a 12-foot-tall praying mantis that looked like it had been designed by someone with serious anger management issues. Its claws gleamed under the arena lights, and when it opened its mouth, steam hissed out like a broken radiator. Wonderful, Maya muttered. I get to fight the bug from my nightmares. The crowd was already chanting what sounded like 30 seconds in about 17 different languages. Apparently, that was their collective guess for how long she'd last. Maya looked around the arena. Sand, some rocks, a few pieces of what looked like decorative metal piping, and a crowd of bloodthirsty aliens. Not exactly a tactical advantage goldmine. Begin, Grex shouted. The Crimson Mantis charged with the grace of a freight train that had taken ballet lessons but failed the final exam. Maya dove to the side, grabbed one of the metal pipes, and immediately realized it was about as effective as bringing a pool noodle to a sword fight. The mantis spun around and spat a stream of acid that missed Maya by inches, and left a smoking hole in the arena wall. The crowd went wild. Maya went slightly pale. Okay, she said to herself. Think. What would someone who wasn't a minimum wage fast food worker do in this situation? The mantis charged again. This time, Maya didn't dodge. Instead, she did something that made absolutely no sense from a tactical standpoint. She ran straight at it, screaming at the top of her lungs about how she was tired of Tuesday shifts and customers who couldn't figure out the difference between a medium and a large. The mantis, apparently unprepared for prey that charged while having an emotional breakdown, hesitated for just a moment. Maya used that moment to slide between its legs, grab a handful of arena sand, and fling it directly into the creature's compound eyes. Blinded and confused, the mantis started spitting acid randomly, which was when Maya realized she might actually have a chance. She grabbed another piece of debris, waited for the mantis to spit again, and used the metal pipe to redirect the acid stream back at the creature's own legs. The crowd fell silent as the mighty Crimson Mantis began dissolving its own limbs. Maya stood there, covered in sand and holding a bent pipe, looking as surprised as everyone else. And the winner, Grex announced, his voice betraying his shock, is the human warrior Maya. As the crowd erupted in confused cheering and angry betting disputes, Maya waved the pipe in what she hoped looked like a victory gesture. I'd like to thank my manager at Burger Galaxy for teaching me that sometimes you have to use whatever's available to clean up a mess. Grex was already calculating his profits. This was going to be more interesting than he'd thought. Over the next 3 weeks, Maya Rodriguez became something of a phenomenon, though not for the reasons anyone expected. Her second opponent was a warrior from the lava world of Pyrexia, a being of living rock and molten fury who had trained for centuries in the art of honorable combat. Maya defeated him by complaining loudly about the arena's poor ventilation while systematically clogging his cooling vents with sand and debris. When he overheated and shut down, she was declared the winner by technical knockout. The crowd was baffled. The betting syndicates were furious. This makes no sense. Her lizard cellmate, who had introduced himself as Flick, whispered as they watched Maya's third victory from their cell. Her opponent this time had been a crystalline being from a high-gravity world supposedly unbreakable and unstoppable. Maya had defeated it by realizing it was basically a living wind chime and spending the entire match making it resonate at its natural frequency by banging on the arena walls with a rhythmic pattern she claimed to have learned from her upstairs neighbors. I don't understand it either, Maya admitted, picking at what passed for dinner. But apparently, nobody in this galaxy has ever heard of fighting dirty. They all want to have these grand honorable duels with dramatic speeches and proper technique. I just want to go home. By her fifth victory, against something called the Void Stalker of Kepler 9, Maya had developed an actual following. Not because people thought she was skilled, but because watching her accidentally stumble into victory after victory while maintaining a running commentary about her former job was apparently the most entertaining thing to happen in the arena in decades. Look at her go, alien spectators would say to each other. She's so unpredictable. Is she a tactical genius or completely insane? Both probably, their friends would reply, placing larger and larger bets on increasingly specific outcomes. Maya's reputation grew, and with it, Grex's profits. He started billing her matches as comedy events, which Maya found deeply insulting but couldn't really argue with, considering her last victory had involved defeating a telepathic warrior by thinking exclusively about the lyrics to a commercial jingle for carpet cleaning until her opponent had a nervous breakdown. It was after her seventh victory that Maya met Kor. He was sitting in the corner of the fighter's common area, looking like someone had taken a rhinoceros, taught it to walk upright, and then given it a midlife crisis. His armor was dented, his weapons were dull, and his expression suggested he'd lost a bet with the universe and was still paying interest on it. "You're the human everyone's talking about," he said, without looking up from what appeared to be alien alcohol that glowed faintly blue. "Guilty as charged," Maya said, sitting down across from him. "You're one of the fighters," was Kor grunted. "Used to be decent at it too. Won 43 consecutive matches before I met one of the apex predators. Now I'm just here for the free meals and the existential dread." Maya studied him. "What happened?" "Same thing that happens to everyone eventually. You get cocky, you think you've figured out the system, and then you meet something that reminds you that the universe has a sense of humor and it's not a nice one." Kor finally looked at her. "You're going to face one of them soon. Grex has been building up to it. The crowds are demanding it. And you think I'll lose?" "I think you'll die," Kor said bluntly. "But here's the thing about you human. You don't fight like anyone else. You fight like someone who's never heard the rules, which means you don't feel bound by them. That's either going to get you killed faster, or it's going to do something nobody expects." Maya had started paying attention to more than just her fights. She watched Grex's operation, listened to the guards, observed the betting patterns. The arena wasn't just entertainment, it was the hub of a massive criminal network. Grex used the fights to launder money, the betting to manipulate markets, and the gladiators as a front for all kinds of illegal activities. "You know what I've noticed," Maya said to Kor one evening. "Everyone here is so focused on the fighting that they're not paying attention to the business. Grex is running more than just an arena, he's running a whole operation." Kor snorted. "Of course he is. Everyone knows that. What's your point?" "My point is that everyone's playing his game by his rules. But what if someone decided to play a different game entirely?" Before Kor could ask what she meant, Grex's voice echoed through the complex. "Attention fighters and bottom feeders. Tomorrow our human sensation faces her greatest challenge yet. She will battle Scar the Bone Crusher, current champion of the Apex Predators and holder of the galactic record for fastest dismemberment." Maya looked at Kor, who had gone slightly green around his rhinoceros gills. "Fastest dismemberment, 4.7 seconds, Kor whispered. "That's counting the time it took the referee to declare the match over." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Well, that's definitely going to require a different approach than the wind chime thing." The night before her match with Scar the Bone Crusher, Maya didn't sleep. Instead, she had what she liked to call a strategic planning session, which mostly involved pacing around her cell and muttering to herself like someone who'd had too much caffeine and too little sanity. "Okay, Rodriguez," she said to herself. "Time to think outside the box. Way outside the box. Like the box is a distant memory, and you're operating in a completely different dimension." Kor watched her pace with the expression of someone watching a traffic accident in slow motion. "You know, most fighters spend their last night praying to whatever gods they believe in." "I don't pray to gods," Maya said. "I complain to managers. And right now, I've got some serious complaints about the management of this operation." The morning of the fight, the arena was packed beyond capacity. Word had spread throughout the criminal underworld that the crazy human was finally going to face a real apex predator. The betting was so intense that 3 separate gambling syndicates had set up temporary offices just to handle the volume. Grex was beside himself with glee. This is it, my dear audience. The moment you've all been waiting for. The unstoppable force meets the immovable object. The irresistible comedy meets the inevitable tragedy. Maya entered the arena to find Scar the Bone Crusher waiting for her. He was exactly what his name suggested. 12 feet of muscle, bone and bad attitude. With arms that looked like they could punch through a spaceship hull and a smile that suggested he'd done exactly that on multiple occasions. Human, Scar growled, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. I have studied your previous matches. Your tactics are chaotic and unpredictable. This intrigues me. I will enjoy crushing you slowly. Thanks, Maya said, looking around the arena. I've got to say, you guys really know how to make a girl feel welcome. Nothing says hospitality like public execution for entertainment. But Maya wasn't looking at Scar, she was looking at the arena's infrastructure. The support beams, the ventilation system, the power conduits that fed the energy shields separating the fighters from the crowd, and most importantly, the communications array that broadcast the fights throughout the galaxy. You seem distracted, little human, Scar observed. Are you perhaps composing your final words? Actually, yeah, Maya said, pulling a small device from her boot that she'd been working on for weeks, cobbled together from spare parts and sheer determination. I do have some final words, but they're not for you. She activated the device, and suddenly every screen in the arena, every broadcasting station, every communication network connected to Grex's operation was displaying not the fight, but something else entirely. Financial records, transaction logs, detailed documentation of every illegal operation Grex had been running for the past 5 years. The crowd went silent as they watched their entertainment system turn into the galaxy's most comprehensive expose of organized crime. Maya had spent weeks learning the arena's systems, mapping its networks, and documenting everything she observed. What is this? Grex shrieked from his booth. Shut it down. Shut it all down. Too late, Maya called out, her voice amplified by the same system now broadcasting Grex's dirty laundry to half the galaxy. I've been recording everything, documenting everything, and sending it all to the Galactic Council's Criminal Investigation Division. Congratulations everybody. You're all now starring in the biggest crime bust in galactic history. Scar looked confused. Are we still fighting? I prepared for battle, not, whatever this is. Oh, we're definitely still fighting, Maya said. But not the fight everyone expected. The arena erupted into chaos as Galactic Council enforcement ships began materializing outside. Grex's security forces were running around like insects when someone kicks over their nest. The crowd was either trying to flee, or trying to delete evidence from their personal devices. Maya grabbed a piece of debris, and started systematically destroying the power conduits that maintained the arena's containment fields. Car, she shouted. You wanted to know what it felt like to win again. How about we start by taking over this whole operation? Car, who had been released along with all the other prisoners when Maya's hack opened every cell in the complex, appeared at her side with a grin that suggested he was enjoying this more than he'd enjoyed anything in years. You magnificent, insane human. What's the plan? Simple, Maya said, dodging a blast from one of Grex's guards while continuing to wreck the arena's infrastructure. Everyone here is either a criminal, works for criminals, or pays criminals for entertainment. The Galactic Council is going to shut this place down, but that's going to leave a power vacuum. We're going to fill it. Scar, meanwhile, had decided that if he couldn't have his honorable combat, he might as well join the chaos. He grabbed Grex by his mushroom cap, and held him up like a trophy. Human, I find your tactics acceptable. What shall I do with this one? Don't hurt him, Maya called back. We're going to need him. Someone has to teach us how to run a criminal empire, and he's got the most experience. The arena had become a 3-way battle between Grex's remaining loyal forces, the incoming Galactic Council troops, and an impromptu alliance of former prisoners and gladiators led by a fast food worker from Earth, who had apparently decided that if she was going to be stuck in space, she might as well be stuck in space as a crime boss. By the time the smoke cleared, Maya was sitting in Grex's former office chair, reviewing financial records on a screen that was still occasionally flickering with evidence of galactic criminal conspiracy. Kor stood at her side, and Scar had appointed himself as her chief of security, a position that mostly involved looking intimidating, and occasionally crushing things that needed crushing. So, Kor said, looking at the reports coming in from across their newly acquired territory, We now control the largest criminal network in 3-star systems. We've got the Galactic Council's begrudging respect for cleaning up the corruption, and somehow you've managed to turn a gladiator arena into the headquarters of our operation. How exactly did you plan all this? Maya leaned back in her chair and smiled. Plan? Who said anything about a plan? I just got really tired of being told what I was supposed to do and decided to do something else instead. 6 months later, Maya Rodriguez had what she generously called an empire, though it looked suspiciously like a legitimate business if you squinted at the paperwork and didn't ask too many questions about the armed security personnel. The Crimson Arena had been transformed into the headquarters of Rodriguez Enterprises, a diversified corporation that specialized in conflict resolution, entertainment management, and what Maya euphemistically called aggressive negotiations. The gladiator pits had become training facilities for security contractors. The betting syndicates had evolved into financial consulting services. Even the prison cells had been converted into corporate retreat centers, which Maya thought was either irony or justice depending on your perspective. Mayim, Kaur said, entering her office with a datapad and the expression of someone who'd discovered that legitimate business was somehow more stressful than gladiatorial combat. We've got 3 new contracts for security services, 2 requests for mediation between rival crime families, and someone wants to know if we do birthday parties. Birthday parties? Maya looked up from the reports she'd been reviewing. What kind of birthday parties? The kind where you want to make sure your enemies don't show up uninvited, apparently. Maya considered this. Put it under event security and charge them double. What else? The Galactic Council wants to formally recognize Rodriguez Enterprises as a legitimate corporation. They're calling it an innovative approach to criminal rehabilitation through corporate restructuring. I love bureaucrats. Maya said. They can make anything sound official if you use enough syllables. Anything else? Kaur consulted his datapad. Oh, and Captain Bleck is here to see you. He says he's come to collect his finder's fee for discovering such a valuable commodity. Maya's smile could have powered a small space station. Is he now? Well, send him in. I've been looking forward to this conversation for months. Captain Bleck entered the office with the swagger of someone who believed he was about to collect a large payday. He looked around at the renovated space, taking in the corporate artwork, the efficient staff, and the distinct lack of blood on the floors. Ah, Maya Rodriguez, he said, his tentacles wiggling with what might have been pleasure. Or should I say CEO Rodriguez? I must admit, when we sold you to that gladiator arena, I never expected you to take over the entire operation. Life's full of surprises, Maya said, not getting up from her desk. What can I do for you, Captain? Well, according to galactic salvage law, I'm entitled to a percentage of any profits generated by cargo I've delivered. Since you've built quite the profitable enterprise here, I believe a standard finder's fee would be appropriate. Say 10% of your annual revenue. Maya nodded thoughtfully. That's an interesting interpretation of salvage law. Kaur, what's our current annual revenue? Approximately 47 million galactic credits, ma'am, and growing. So Captain Bleck here thinks he's entitled to 4.7 million credits because he kidnapped me from behind a burger joint. Maya finally stood up, and Captain Bleck suddenly noticed that Scar had entered the room behind him and was cracking his knuckles in a way that suggested violence was imminent. Now, Captain Bleck said, his tentacles beginning to twitch nervously. There's no need for hostility. We're all civilized beings here. Civilized, Maya repeated. You know what's funny about that word? I used to think civilization meant things like due process, and consent, and not kidnapping people from their jobs. But apparently, out here in the galaxy, civilization means whoever has the biggest guns gets to make the rules. She walked around her desk to stand directly in front of Captain Bleck. So here are my rules. You have exactly 30 seconds to get off my station, out of my star system, and back to whatever rock you crawled out from under. If I ever see you again, Scar here is going to demonstrate why he was called the Bone Crusher. But my finder's fee. Your finder's fee, Maya said, is that I'm letting you leave with all your tentacles still attached. Consider it a professional courtesy. Captain Bleck looked at Scar, who had moved closer and was now examining his own claws with the air of someone selecting the right tool for a job. This is highly irregular. There are laws. Yeah, there are, Maya agreed. And according to those laws, kidnapping is illegal, slavery is illegal, and running unlicensed gladiator fights is illegal. But apparently, nobody cared about those laws until I made them care. Funny how that works. Captain Bleck fled the office with a speed that would have been impressive if it weren't so pathetic. Maya watched him go, then turned to Kaur and Scar. You know what the really funny part is, she said. I actually kind of like it here. Sure, I got kidnapped by incompetent aliens and thrown into a death arena, but for the first time in my life, I'm running something that matters. People actually listen to me. My decisions have consequences beyond whether someone gets extra pickles on their burger. So you're staying? Kaur asked. Maya looked out the window of her office at the bustling station below. Former gladiators were training new security recruits. Ex-criminals were learning legitimate business practices. The whole operation hummed with the efficiency of people who had found purpose in something other than violence. "Where else am I going to go?" she said. "Earth? Back to Burger Galaxy? Back to scraping gum off dumpsters and wondering if this is all there is to life?" She shook her head. "No, I think I'll stay right here. Besides, someone needs to keep an eye on you people. The galaxy's a dangerous place, and apparently, it takes a human from a Deathworld to teach everyone else how to run a proper civilization." Scar nodded approvingly. "You have brought honor to the concept of apex predator, Maya Rodriguez. Your enemies flee before you, your allies prosper under your protection, and your reign brings order to chaos." "My reign," Maya repeated, testing the words. "You know what? I like the sound of that. Long live the queen, I guess." And in the depths of space, on a station that had once been dedicated to violence and exploitation, Maya Rodriguez settled into her throne and got back to the business of running an empire. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but then again, the best adventures never were. After all, she'd learned something important during her time in the arena. Sometimes the most dangerous predator isn't the one with the biggest claws or the strongest armor. Sometimes it's the one who refuses to play by anyone else's rules and has the sheer bloody-minded determination to make everyone else play by theirs instead. And Maya Rodriguez, former fast food worker turned galactic crime boss, had always been very good at making her own rules.